We recognize that CVUUS gathers on the land of the Western Abenaki people. We respect their spiritual relationship to the land and hope to learn from them how we can live in balance with the earth. And we will have an opportunity to learn more about the Abenaki this spring when on June 17th and 18th, there are Abenaki Heritage Weekend at the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum here in Addison County. And since it is our professed attempt to learn more about them, I would encourage a lot of us to go that weekend. There'll be workshops, drumming, dancing, and singing. So welcome on this rainy April Sunday, which I think will stay to become a rainy Monday. But that is how the plants grow. So we can be thankful that we're not where the drought is. This would be a great time to turn off your phones, to get hearing assistance at the back table, if that would be helpful to you, and to settle in ready for our service. There are some things in your order of service that I'd like to bring your attention to. One is that this week the American Red Cross will have a blood drive here, and so if you would like to have a pathway to connection with the other people who are here today, you can help us move the chairs to the side after the service. It's a very good way to start meeting people you might not otherwise meet. The Rhubarb Festival Planning Group is getting ready for the June 3rd festival. So you can speak with Mike in the back about that. And April 30th, which is coming right up next week, that will be Blue Jean Sunday when we work together to clean up our grounds and buildings following the worship service. You can wear blue jeans other times too, but. So I'm going to have Barnaby introduce our gathering song this morning.
Good morning to everybody who's here online and in person. Before I introduce the gathering song, one more pathway to connection. The donations team is meeting online tonight at 7 o'clock to talk about who will be sharing the offering with going forward. And if anybody's interested in that and wants the link to that meeting, let me know and I'll send you that link. Anybody is welcome to join us for that. So I just wanted to say a little bit about rank by rank, which is an old UU standard that has been given new words recently. So we're not singing it out of the hymnals. And it's very much on my mind because my mentor, Allison Miller, was just installed in Portland, Oregon, one of our biggest churches. And at the beginning of the installation service, they sang rank by rank with the new words. And going through the chat column of the people who were watching online was, oh, I love the new words. And the background to that is at GA, when that and Standing on the Side of Love were sung a few years ago, a well-known minister who's in a wheelchair held up a giant sign that said, ouch, every time it said standing. And that brought to people's attention that that word was a word that just made people who were condemned to not being able to stand feel a little left out. And so the author of Standing on the Side of Love changed that to answering the call of love, and then just recently we have new words for rank by rank, which is sung over and over at installations. I wanted it to be our opening song because this is what it means to be a living tradition. You don't necessarily leave things that have been meaningful to people generation after generation behind, but sometimes you tweak them to show that you're paying attention to the people who are here now and to their feelings. And you know what? After a while, you get used to it and you think that's the way we should have been doing it all along. So I invite you to stand in body or spirit and sing the rank by rank with the words that will be on the screen. scrambling in our transcription from the new words to the order, but you got the idea. We want to carry on in a better way what we inherited, not leave it behind.
So as worship associates, we get the opportunities to stretch and grow ourselves. And so this week, as I looked for a call to worship, Barnaby said, "You should write your own." I was like, "Me?" So here's my call to worship for us this morning. And as we come into this time of worship, may we each take a moment for a few deep breaths to settle comfortably into our seats, our position in the room, and in this calming space that is our sanctuary or in your home. Let us calm our minds and spirits to prepare ourselves for this sacred time we have each set aside to worship together this morning. We can do this by letting go of whatever tensions arose in getting here, so we may be open to what happens as we sing, read, listen, meditate, or pray together. May we each be open to whatever small miracles might happen from our time with one another. All of these things done with each other help us to develop our beloved community. This sense of community is enhanced by the connections we make through our conversations after the service, as we transition into social hour downstairs or on Zoom, or through the activities we do with one another at other times. Let us worship together. And now, while Barnaby lights our chalices, if you'll join me in the chalice lighting in your order of service and on the screen. As we kindle this flame, may it spark in each of us connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other.
I just want to say we have a chalice for the children who aren't with us this morning. They're over in Fenn House for the whole hour, but they're always with us. So I like both chalices, and think of them as well as us as you watch them burn. We want to try something a little different. In the hymnal, there's these little 4-line poems. There's about 8 of them or 9 of them that have been written to Old 100th. And we thought we would just string a few of them together in this service. The first one is both in English, and then the second is in Spanish. So the words are going to be up there. We're getting up 381 first, right, Margie? Liam? And Ronnie will just play the tune through once you know the tune, and then we'll sing the 2 versions of these first 2 versions, and then after Steve does the testimony, we'll do 1 more version. Morning. Good morning.
wish Poppy were here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Earth Day and about our event here today. And I hope this will just take a few minutes. The first thing, and I would just say before I start, that Earth Day has taken on an even greater significance for me since my granddaughter was born. And so this is normally the time for all ages, and it's still the time for all ages, even though they aren't here with us this morning. In a short article that Heather Cox Richardson wrote this week, she said that the spark for the first Earth Day, which was yesterday, was Earth Day, was the 1962 publication of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. A marine biologist and best-selling author, Carson showed the devastating effects of people on nature by documenting the effect of modern pesticides on the natural world. She focused on DDT, as you may know. A couple years later, just before she died of breast cancer, so in 1964, she said, I'm going to leave her words, and I'll explain in a second. So she said, man's attitude toward nature is today critically important simply because we have now acquired a fateful power to alter and destroy nature. But man, humans, are a part of nature, she said, and their war against nature is inevitably war against themselves. We are challenged, as humankind has never been challenged before, to prove our maturity and our mastery, not of nature, but of ourselves. So that's just a little bit about Earth Day and why it's important. That was 53 years ago. Richardson also talked about how it wasn't a politically divisive issue at the time. So it's worth noting. But I mostly just want to talk about our event for today. So you may have noticed our electric vehicle out here. If you were walking up this way, we've parked some electric vehicles close by here around. Our intention today was to have you all, those of you that were interested, tour the vehicles, and then Mother Nature gave us a little bit of extra water here. So we may still do that if it's not raining too hard. Folks are interested. The vehicles are around, and what I think I'd like to do right now is just have, this is the second part. I'll give just a little context of what the CVUUS's climate engagement team has been bringing to you this spring around the general theme of electrification. So what can we do about climate? One of the big things we can do individually is stop burning things. And the way we can do that in our lives is when we have a choice in front of us, something that needs to be replaced, or a new vehicle purchased, or your oil burner goes out, think first of doing it through electrical means rather than burning things. That's such a general frame to think about this. Today's event is about vehicles, and we have cars. We were also going to have some e-bikes here. I don't think they rode their bikes in this morning because of the weather. But so what I'd just like to do before I finish is just have, so if you currently own an electric vehicle, stand up. Plug-in hybrids are okay. Go ahead, Rich. Okay. Stay standing, please. If you're interested, or if you have questions or otherwise interested in an electric vehicle, please stand up. Okay, now this is flawed. This is a flawed methodology because I forget who was there to begin with. But if you're one of those people that is interested, make eye connection with someone close to you. Okay, go ahead. If those of you everybody stay standing. If you're one of those owners, raise your hand now. Okay, make eye contact with someone, your friend, someone nearby, and find them after church, either downstairs, or if you can't stay today downstairs, run up to them before you leave and make an appointment to have coffee or some other way so you can have your questions answered about electric vehicles. If you want to go look at them, I have my umbrella. Others may as well. We're happy to go out in the rain and show them to you, but I realize that may not be what everybody's so interested in today. So, Chris, they can't hear you though. Either come up or say it so I can repeat it. No.
It's quick. Mine is the prettiest color.
Chris said hers is the prettiest color, so you can go out and see that. The only other piece of advice I would give you is if you're thinking about purchasing a vehicle, well, probably most of these people would be happy to have you test drive their car. I would not recommend that you test drive an electric vehicle unless you're getting close to a decision, because once you drive one, you'll never want to drive anything else.
So one more crack at Old Hundredth, I think, the 377 version. There it is. This is the last Sunday where we have an offering that is being shared with Abenaki Helping Abenaki. We've told you a lot about the different programs that the groups do. I just wanted to say that it might be appropriate on this Sunday to teach you the Abenaki word for thank you, which is ulini. Ulini. Ulini is thank you. It's one of the first words that kids are taught in the language. And some of you probably are aware, but the name Abenaki comes from Abena, meaning flickering light, and Ki, meaning people. Together the word translates as people of the first light, or people of the dawn land, because the main part of the tribe was over towards Maine, where the sun came up. And finally, when they speak of the homeland that we now occupy, they call it Indakina, Indakina. So as we are here on Indakina, maybe we say thank you, Ulini, for the surviving members of this nation who are there helping expand our spiritual view of the world. And we try to be as generous as we can in supporting this offering. stand for us to receive the offering as Mike and Rebecca bring it forward. Thank you for being ushers today. Well, I have a very nice mix of yellow cards today and other things to mention during milestones. I'm going to start with 2, 3 that just came up. Oh, okay. This is from Kate and John. This is a yellow card about a green card. John and Kate are happy to announce that their daughter-in-law, Charles's wife, Julia Negretto, has finally received her green card. It's wonderful, and an Earth Day week, too. Maybe it will do double duty for her. Carol Harden, on behalf of the choir, says, choir members and others who attended last night's performance of the Middlebury College Choir congratulate Ronnie Romano for his outstanding leadership of the choir. The music was wonderful and his rapport with the singers was evident. We all felt proud to know him and happy to have the opportunity to also sing under his guidance. By the time you finally move away, Ronnie, maybe you'll be used to how much we love you. From Dale Birdsall, Polly and I spent yesterday afternoon at the college for the first annual Highland Games. It was great fun for all. Watch for the next one. So I confess I don't know much about Highland Games, but you're our expert on all things Scotch, so anybody who's interested in what they actually watch, I'm sure Dale would love to talk to you in coffee hour. This is one near and dear to my heart, and I think a lot of us who've been aware of this congregation's role in this battle. But from Marnie Wood, the Vermont legislature has passed House Bill 190, removing the residency requirement so that health care allows for equity in using Vermont's medical aid in dying law, known as Act 39. And what this means is that we have had this death with dignity law, thanks in part to the work of Marnie and others over a long period of time, and now people from out of state will not be barred from coming here to also take advantage of this chance to have a more humane way of exiting that they are in control of and that many states don't allow yet. For context, for those of you who don't know Marnie, she was sharing her sister Nancy's end-of-life choice using Oregon's death with dignity law, which was kind of the first in the nation. And she was sharing that this week. And the Senate has their positive vote, and the governor has indicated that he will sign it into law. So Marnie serves on the board of Patient Choices Vermont and encourages you to go to the website for very clear information. That's Patient Choices Vermont. And Marnie, just raise your hand for anybody who doesn't know you if you want to talk to Marnie more about that afterwards. And thank you for all of your work on this. Two more things. We have another version of the pride flag outside that is the size of the one we had. And so we got an oversized one on the first effort, and we got one that will actually function better on the pole on the second effort. And I want to really thank Mike Greenwood for sticking with it and getting what we needed. The right size is the size that's in our heart in recognition of that flag, and we're very appreciative that it was up again so soon after it was torn down after that service a few weeks ago. And boy, this is birthday Sunday. First of all, there's the birthday cake downstairs for all of the April birthdays that Michelle and Donna made yesterday. And I tell you, I was the one who brought it here. I'm very, very impressed. You won't want to miss. It's a Java cake with cream icing. And maybe we'll just stop now and go downstairs. No, I'll hold out. But today is also Francois Clemens' birthday. And Francois, raise your hand for people who don't know you. And well, let me just finish what I'm saying. So originally we had hoped to have a concert on this day for Francois' birthday, kind of a farewell concert for him singing the Negro spirituals, which he has studied for so long and knows so much about. That concert has been moved to May 6th. So I hope everybody who is around comes and tells their friends about it. So Francois' birthday actually runs from today until May 6th. Francois. I just want to say I made it. Francois, 78 isn't it? You got to try to make it to 79. Okay, thanks. We need you there, now and for many years to come. There's always unspoken joys and... Oh, yes, this one came in. Here we go. I lost it in my birthday cards. There turned out to be so many. Margie Young said their foster son Nate turned 16 yesterday. So that's a big one. Maybe this will be your sweet 16 party downstairs where we have the cake. So thank you for reminding me. There's always unspoken joys and concerns and milestones, and we save time in this service for silent meditation or prayer, or whatever helps you locate where your heart is this morning before we go on. And I invite you into that space now. To come out of the meditation, we're going to sing this beautiful song from our Teal hymnal. And it's about listening as the beginning of conversation. It's a little complicated in how it flows the hymnal. Ronnie, do you want to say anything about it to guide people? Or I hope the slides will get it right because there's some repeats in there. that aren't exactly clear. We'll sing along and we'll listen to each other, and it will be beautiful. It's a hard act to follow, to be a being getting up and talking just after we've told you listen more often than things. But I just want to say the logic of that song doesn't mean never listen to beings. And we have some important stuff to share right now. As a lot of you have heard, we've been in a pledge drive for a long time, starting in March, and the pledge drive has pretty much reached its end. We know what's coming in terms of the pledge drive. We also know from the very hard work of the budget team what the budget should be for the year that starts July 1st if we are going to pay our staff fairly and not cut programs or not cut staff hours. And we have a $50,000 to $60,000 gap between what is pledged and what needs to be filled. Now that in and of itself is not unusual that there is a gap. For many, many years we've had to ask people who are in fairly good shape to make one-time gifts that don't go into their pledge base, but because they're in reasonable shape now, maybe better shape than some other people, that they can make these one-time gifts to help us get where we need to get. This year, the gap is bigger, and to avoid going into rainy day funds to the point where we start to get near margins that are imprudent. We've always had a nice cushion, but to really satisfy that gap without some significant one-time gifts is going to destabilize the congregation financially in terms of its long-term outlook. Now, one-time gifts can be a special form of blessing. I've made them. Many other people have made them as well. I want Carl to come up and share a story from a few years ago that represents the spirit in which we hope people who are fortunate enough to be able to do this will approach this request for one-time gifts so that we can have a balanced budget to vote on one way or another in June.
Thank you, Barnaby. We made a one-time contribution to the canvas, Brett and I, in 2015. As I recall, the exigencies were quite similar. We had come up short in the canvas, and deep cuts affecting program and staff were to be forthcoming. Our children were 15 and 13 at the time, and we were deeply invested in the RE programs, Peter and Annie having just completed the OWL program, which meant I didn't have to have the obligatory dad-son sex talk with Peter, and I was certainly grateful for that. We were at a special meeting after the service where the budget shortfall and its consequences were being explained. We were sitting right over there, right where Seth is sitting. Brett and I were struck with the same thought at the same time. And the very brief discussion we had was, how much? We pledged $10,000 then and there. It was spontaneous and serendipitous. We were glad to do it, and the recollection warms us now. We made the contribution on behalf of and in the memory of my mother, who had died just months before at the age of 99, and of her late life conversion to Unitarian Universalism. I'll explain. As I was growing up in Lewiston, Maine, we were a church-going family every Sunday. We certainly sang Old 100th every week, and we celebrated the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost. My dad was the son of a minister and a religion major at Bates, and was employed at Bates for many decades. The United Baptist Church, the UB, was the church that church-going Bates people attended. It was a magnificent church with a large sanctuary, stained glass windows, a vestry, and other spaces, including a full-court gym, basketball court, which I like better than Sunday school, I'll tell you that. My parents were very involved in the church. Their involvement had a sad end, however, as the church ultimately was taken over by a very conservative evangelical Christian group. My parents' liberal religious orientation was not welcome. Long story short, membership dwindled, the building could not be maintained and was razed, and is now a parking lot next to Sam's Italian Sandwich Shop. My parents were left without a religious community, a genuine loss. And I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, but that's the background. As it turns out, my sister, unbeknownst to me, had joined the UU Church in Brunswick, Maine, a couple years before Brett and I joined CVUUS. My parents, especially my mother, were pleased that Martha and I had found a spiritual base. They attended a number of services in Brunswick with her, and here too, on their visits to Vermont. They lost their church, but they embraced ours. My dad died at 98 in 2010, my mother in 2015, after being in assisted living for 5 years. They were not wealthy people. My mother was one of 12 children, and my dad an immigrant kid whose father died when my dad was in his first year, and whose mom worked in the Waltham watch factory. My parents graduated from Bates at the height of the Depression. So my dad was a careful custodian of the family finances. When my mother died, there was still some money left in his retirement funds, which my sister and I inherited and split. It was a modest amount, and I'm not being coy in saying that. Brett and I knew that my mother would have been pleased indeed that she could help support this community that had become so important to us, this community in its hour of need. So that's the background of my one-time contribution. Brett and I trust that others in CVUS will find a way to do likewise, so we can maintain the post-pandemic momentum that we have gathered. Blessed be.
So, about a month ago, the New Yorker ran an article titled, "What Conversation Can Do for Us?" And the subtitle said, "Our culture is dominated by efforts to score points and win arguments. Do we really talk anymore?" Sometimes you read or hear something you are really primed to believe. Our culture is dominated by efforts to score points and win arguments resonated that way for me. I was the kind of kid who did a lot of that. My parents believed in explaining their reasons for what they wanted from us. And I was the kind of verbally precocious kid who quickly mastered tricks of arguing that produced stalemates or even chances to use their own rationales against them. They sent me to a psychiatrist when I was 6 to deal with my oppositional verbal behavior and my belief that I was an adult. After a couple of sessions, he told them, "You know, there are times when you could and should say with finality, 'because I am the parent.'" Eventually, I came to see that this me wasn't the me I wanted to be. I went into journalism in no small part because the job demanded that I be better at paying respectful attention to what others were saying, both literally and in their behavior. The article caught my attention because the childhood me still interferes in my life from time to time. But even more so, it caught my attention because runaway divisiveness in our society has been an increasing challenge to Unitarian Universalist values and our life as a congregation during my years of ministry here. It's gotten so bad that I believe many of us initially welcomed COVID to some degree as enforced timeout. I think many of you may recall the powerful appeal of the first line of the Reverend Lynn Unger's poem called Pandemic, which was published on her website in March of 2020. It starts out, "What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling, give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is." The poem goes on to suggest some pathways to healthy renewal of our contacts with each other. The article's title suggested a good first step would be focusing on how we talk across perceived barriers among us. Now that resonated with me. You can't build beloved community. You can't get far on that journey towards spiritual wholeness we've promised to help each other with if our only response when we face challenges to our values and truth as we understand it is to retreat into the comforting embrace of those who agree with us. The only thing left to do when you do that is to increasingly despise and dehumanize those who don't agree with you. High-quality conversations illuminate where values, fears, and hopes overlap. And that illumination is brightest when it emerges from free-ranging conversation, not a workshop assignment to see where you overlap. We all need to feel safe, to be humble about how much we know, and to disclose what stirs our curiosity. Good conversation needs room to zigzag toward whatever moves us and what brings us joy. It doesn't happen when a politician says, "We need to have a national conversation about gun violence." And the result is televised town meetings where a few individuals share questions and opinions, but there's no time for extended one-on-one discussions that stray from the agenda. The New Yorker article turned out to be a review of several books and essays that explore how modern life erodes opportunities for deep sharing through unpressured conversation. It's worth reading, and I'm happy to provide an online link for anyone who wants to take a look at it. But I want to focus today on a less heady view of conversation. And as I sat down to write my sermon Friday, I wasn't sure how to go about that. Philia, I haven't seen you in a few months.
Well, you know, I can't act like a total freak in the saw-whet owl world. They have no idea there is such a being as a brilliant super owl with human friends. You know how they said Jesus was fully God and fully human? I can't explain it, but ever since I was trapped in that Christmas tree sent to Rockefeller Plaza, they rescued, rehabilitated, and released by humans, I have been fully awesome and fully tiny owl.
So you've had a lot of fully owl things to do since your last visit here?
Right. First, I flew north from my winter quarters, and then I picked up a mate from the dudes courting me with freshly caught voles and field mice, built a nest, laid a few eggs. And I lay low a lot when the predators were out and about. I mean, this whole raising kids thing requires a good 4 months of commitment, and I'm not even halfway through yet. You know how it is.
Well, not really. We rarely fully separate from our kids. The mothers among us certainly don't drift off to start a second family during the summer if hunting conditions are good. And they usually don't leave the dads to do the last half of the child rearing. Do you want to talk about your plans in that regard?
Not really. Owls aren't much for chatter, even super owls. I'm always amazed at your intense need to talk with each other, and at each other, and about each other, and over each other. You're worse than crows, no offense.
None taken. It's just so much fun to converse with you. Let me see if I can explain. I have this painting at home called Conversation that's...
No, you don't.
Of course I do. It's right by our front door.
No, I arranged for it to be here because I anticipated that you might show it to me and the rest of our congregation. Look behind you.
Oh my. Let's see. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to put it on these chairs that just happen to be here.
Oh, very
And
good plan.
there it is on the screen as well for people who can't see it here on the chair.
So this is by Townsend Howe, a local artist near New London, New Hampshire, painted in the early 1970s. It's not fabulous art, but I quite like it because I recognize Mount Kearsarge in the background. I spent some quality hunting and roosting time around there. You just have to be careful about the hawks riding the thermals.
Well, I agree it's not fabulous art, technically speaking, but I fell in love with it the instant I saw it at an arts and crafts show while visiting my grandmother at Lake Sunapee in, let me see, it must have been the summer of 1973. There was something captivating about the relaxed conversation between the two farmers, the friendly dog with the doggy hopes that something dogs like is being planned, maybe even a swim. Some birds are flying, but some are resting on the peak of the barn. Everything is in a warm, rural, New England summer's day balance. Whatever is missing in the world today in terms of conversation, these guys seem to have made time for it.
So you bought it to hang on to a feeling? You are such a human.
No, regretfully, I felt I couldn't afford to buy it on my beginning reporter's salary. For years, all I could do was tell people about this painting I'd seen. But then, in 1984, now on a New York Times salary, I stumbled upon it hanging in a New London art gallery. It cost more, but this time I bought it.
So what is so important about guys just talking? I see people talking everywhere.
Sometimes nothing about it is important, or at least nothing we will ever see. But sometimes there's more going on than words can say, because good conversation is filled with good silences, good memories, and good thoughts that are unspoken. Silences when you can almost hear love vibrating between the people talking. People who have lots of good conversations get to the point where they can sing country songs like "You Say It Best When You Say Nothing at All," or they can pray without embarrassment to discover what they really long for themselves and for others.
Oh, now I get why you tell us it's sometimes important to have a God or gods that you can talk to rather than a God you believe in.
Yeah, that's part of you that's awesome that's speaking right now. It's a mystery how you chose me as a friend, but you've shown me new things about conversation.
Yeah, but before you met me, you never realized what a short distance there was between munching on field mice and the holy. You had very narrow, sentimental, and too literal views of the interconnected web of existence.
I probably still do sometimes, but it's getting easier to see that we need to have better conversations with everything in the natural world and the planet we call home, as well as each other, and not just on Earth Day.
Well, true dat. Everything talks to those who listen wisely and carefully. I've heard some people say money talks.
That's another conversation. We've already said enough about that today before you showed up. But wait a minute. You aren't still trying to get me to accept recently deceased rodents as your annual contribution to CVUUS.
No, but your narrow view of the interconnected web is showing again. Someday you'll be woke enough to feature donated rodents' corpses in a CVUS ritual as unique as the mud communion.
Maybe, but I think the folks here are pretty happy I'm retiring before trying to do that. I'm hoping you and I will still be able to have conversations about almost anything imaginable, even if we can't share them in this space with this amazing congregation. I bet some of them want to talk to you without me being present.
I see a few souls in this group that already talk to super animals, and I think you should know I also see some super animals waiting around for conversation partners if they are needed.
How about plants?
Not at the moment, but there might be a couple outside. People generally have to go somewhere wilder to find plants and trees to converse with. Fungi, lichen, and all those other beings, well, they can talk, but their language is so ancient and simple that even I have trouble talking to them. Fun fact, they spend all of Earth Day, and most others, praying simply, "Thank you, thank you, thank you to the Spirit of life."
Wow. It looks to me like the congregation has that and a whole lot more to say to each other. Social hour is going to be a real gab fest. I can picture them all in there milling around in a scene as heartwarming as the farmers chatting near Kearsarge.
Amen.
And now we're going to have Ronnie come up and explain what we'll do with the closing song.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. So we're going to close today with Tom Chapin's song, "This Pretty Planet," which is a wonderful three-part round. And we thought it would be really nice to have the choir up here kind of model how to sing the round for you so that you could join in and get all the harmonies. So we have three groups up here. Here's group one. Say hi, group one. Okay. who will be roughly responsible for, everybody over here. So people just kind of pick a group that you want to sing with, okay? And then group 2 in the middle, and, something like that. And group 3 over here, okay? So everybody out there, just kind of lock onto one of these groups and sing with them, okay? So here's what we're going to do. The choir will sing the whole thing through for you once, and then we'll invite you to join with us, and then we'll split off into the round. And it'll be group 1, then group 2, then group 3. Just stay with your group and have fun, okay? And we'll do it 3 times through once we get to the round part. Here we go.
Well, there's an old spiritual, shall we gather at the river, but I'm going to say, shall we gather at the birthday cake? And look forward to seeing everybody down there in social hour with your EV questions. Blessed be and amen.